So my name is Kelly Grindrod. I'm a pharmacist and I'm an associate professor at the University of Waterloo School of Pharmacy. I moved to the region about 10 years ago. Before that, I'd been out west in Alberta and in Vancouver. This is an area I've worked for a long time in digital health and innovations around family medicine and pharmacy. And then I also do a lot of work for public health or in public health. And so it was a pretty natural fit for me to take on a lot of the work related to educating the public about vaccines. So I chose to get the vaccine because I'm going to be involved in vaccinating others, which means I'm in close contact with not only people who come in to get vaccinated, but also all the people on the team who work to prepare the vaccines and get them into arms. I also have family members who are older. I haven't seen my own parents in almost 2 years now. My kids who are growing up have changed a lot since I saw them. So for me, the vaccine is one of the fastest ways back to seeing my family again. So you've really got 4 different kinds of vaccines approved in Canada. You've got your mRNA vaccines, which include Pfizer and Moderna. And you've also got your viral vector vaccines, which include AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson. All are similarly effective when it comes to preventing severe illness, hospitalization, and death. And this is something that sometimes gets missed in the conversations about these vaccines. All 4 vaccines are extremely effective at preventing the number one thing that is shutting down the economy and separating us from our family and friends. It's the fact that COVID causes severe illness and hospitalization and death at such a high rate that we need to close things down because the hospitals get overwhelmed. So all 4 vaccines, it's 95 to 100% effective for preventing severe illness, hospitalization, and death. Now, you would have heard when the vaccines first came out, the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccines, that they were 95% effective. And that meant that they protect 95% of people from having any signs of COVID, even a mild infection. The AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson vaccines have an efficacy of about 62 to 67%, which means that for about 2/3 of people, they're protected from having any signs of even a mild infection, and about 1/3 of people might have a mild cold. So the thing is, the mild infection for COVID doesn't actually shut the economy down. So that's not the outcome that we're really after. What you really want is to prevent the severe illness, hospitalization, and death. And all 4 vaccines really, really, really effectively prevent those things. So the next question is, what happens if I get a choice? Well, this is actually a kind of a misperception. You aren't going to be given a choice. So you're going to be given a place where you can get the vaccine the earliest. And the recommendation is take the first vaccine that you're offered the soonest you can get it. You don't want to wait. You don't want to say, I don't want AstraZeneca. I'm going to wait for one of the mRNA vaccines like Pfizer or Moderna. Because what ends up happening is as we head into what could quite possibly here be a 3rd wave, you end up being unvaccinated through a very dangerous time, putting yourself at pretty high risk for infection. When the vaccines that you could have taken earlier, like an AstraZeneca or a Johnson & Johnson, for example, would actually have been very effective at protecting you. So the advice for that reason is across the board, take the first vaccine that you are offered as soon as you can get it. So each of these vaccinations has a relatively simple ingredient list, which is actually different from other vaccines. You could read the ingredient list and you'd probably recognize most of the ingredients in there. Sugar, water. With the mRNA vaccines, you've got some fats to protect the very fragile mRNA. The viral vector vaccines, you've got a harmless virus that's being used as a carrier. And across the board, how we preserve these is through things like sugar and pH and things like that. So the vaccines themselves don't really have preservatives or those ingredients people used to worry about, but those aren't in these vaccines. Now, the other question that comes up again and again is, what about things like blood products, fetal tissue, or pork products, for example? There are no blood products, fetal tissues, or pork products in any of the vaccines that are out there. So you can take the vaccines, and actually a number of religious organizations have released statements specifically to this effect. Now, all the vaccines did use some fetal tissues in the discovery of them. So the mRNA vaccines did as well. They are considered generally to be uncontroversial vaccines by a number of religious organizations, because that's actually how drugs are generally tested early on. And then the AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson vaccines are manufactured using some fetal cells these were one cell line from the 1970s. It's the same cell line going forward. So there were no abortions that were conducted to get tissues for these vaccines. It's a single cell line from back in the 1970s. So again, the belief for many different religions, and this actually goes across multiple religions, is that as a person who cares for community, it is an act of charity to get vaccinated and protect those around you. A separate conversation for many of these religious organizations is it would be great if we conducted science without the use of these tissues from the 1970s. We really need to advocate for, in the future, perhaps moving away from that. But at this moment in time, none of these vaccines contain fetal tissues. But even though the AstraZeneca is manufactured that way, if that's the one that you're offered, that is the one that you can take. And again, you can check in with your religious leaders as well about this. But generally, these are not considered to be very controversial vaccines. In the time of the pandemic, you're better off being vaccinated as soon as you can get the vaccine. So one really common question that I get is, will this change my DNA? No, none of these vaccines can change your DNA. They don't come near your DNA. They don't impact your DNA. So the best way to think of them, and I use this analogy a lot, it's like a Post-it note where there's some instructions written on a Post-it note. You see the Post-it note, you commit that Post-it note to memory, and then you throw it in the garbage. The memory doesn't change your brain. It's just something that you've now gained. But the Post-it note itself, it just gets thrown away as soon as it's done. So these are not things that stick around for the long term. What sticks around is the memory that the vaccines are trying to teach you. And in this case, they're teaching you about something called the spike protein. So we're not giving you the whole COVID virus. We're giving you a piece of the virus on the surface that your own cells can make, can memorize, and then you get rid of it. So it's not changing your DNA. It's just giving you an immune memory. At the end of the day, I think a lot of people are ready to get the vaccine right now with no additional information. There's a small portion of the population who needs a bit more information. So go call your doctor, call your pharmacist, get the information you need to feel comfortable getting the vaccine. But really, as we're heading into this potentially third wave of this pandemic, protect yourself, protect others, and get vaccinated.